Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the 48th edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We really appreciate you guys joining us. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It's free, and it really helps us out a lot. We really appreciate that. Also, catch us on your favorite audio platforms, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, as you see down there. Also, Facebook, if you want to check us out. So we really appreciate that. Let's jump to this because Texas lands their first commitment in this spring portal window, and Emmett Mosley the fifth from Stanford. So I'm excited about this guy. What do you think about him, Gerald?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't necessarily fit the profile of like what Steve Sarkisian is recruiting at wide receiver right now, like a bigger kid, 6'2", pushing 200. But I think we talk about it all the time. You and I mentioned it all the time. There are those guys that raise the ceiling and guys that raise the floor. And Emmett Mosley, no shot at him, is an absolute like floor raiser for Texas, right? 48 receptions, 500 yards, 6 touchdowns, a big red zone target for Stanford, a guy who can go and high point a ball in the end zone, or you put one kind of on the sidelines and he's got the arms to reach out and get it. He's that kind of kid where he's able to use his body really well. Again, not quite as fast as what Texas normally recruits. I'm curious to see if he drops any weight between now and the fall, what that looks like. And then the other thing that jumps out to me, and something that we see that this coaching staff likes, comes from an athletic background, comes from a family of athletes and high-level athletes. Both of his parents were varsity athletes at Notre Dame. I think his mom was on a national championship team. His sister plays soccer at Iowa. So, like, he's got a pedigree of competition, and that seems like a weird thing to call out, but, like, there is something we said about people who grow up around people who have achieved quite a bit. He'd be like the third tallest wide receiver on the team, aside after Khalil Lockett and Terry. And so those are, again, I think he's a good addition for Texas. Not like the set the world on fire kind of guy like we thought Isaiah Bond was going to be, or like A.D. Mitchell was 2 years ago. But I think in a room that needs some experience and a room that needs someone who's been around the block a time or two, I think it's a great addition.
I agree. I was excited when we got this guy. We've had 2 guys visit from Stanford, with Bailey off the edge, who I don't think has made a decision yet. And then Mosley, I agree. It raises the floor of this team, especially the wide receiver room. And he came on late. I believe in the last 3 or 4 games of the season, he had 324 yards receiving. So he played very well. And another thing too, there's a lot of one and done guys. That isn't this. This guy has 3 years of eligibility if he needs it to, if he hits here at Texas and moves on to the NFL. So that's really cool that we're going to have him here for multiple years. And I think he's a good football player. And let's be honest here. He had 525 yards as a freshman at Stanford. I don't even know who the quarterback at Stanford was. I'm pretty well versed on the college football landscape, and I have no idea who the quarterback at Stanford was last year because they were a terrible football team. There were a couple really good players that they had, and Texas could end up with 2 of them possibly. Let's hope. We landed this one, and I'm very excited to see what happens with him. Where do you think he fits in the room? Do you think he slides in right away to where he can compete for that 3rd spot, or do you think he's more of a 4th guy?
Man, it's hard to tell. We're hearing a bunch of names out of camp, and we're hearing a lot. We don't have a spring game this year to see any of that come to fruition. But it's hard to come in because he's not going to be participating in spring ball, obviously, because he's not on campus yet. I guess he was on campus for a visit and committed, but he's not enrolled yet, right? So it's going to be hard to break into that rotation that Texas already will have cemented coming out of spring ball. So I think he'll start off probably as one of your first few guys off the bench, probably a rotational guy. But again, Steve Sarkisian is not afraid to play a lot of wide receivers and not afraid to feed the hot hands. When he comes in and plays really well, one of the things I am curious about is his blocking ability and his ability to put hands on somebody at wide receiver. That's been severely lacking, or at least it was lacking this last year. And so I think Texas has an opportunity. If somebody like him, that's a good way to playing time, is coming on the field and being able to block as a wide receiver. He's got the body and the frame to do it. And again, it's not flashy, it's not sexy, but it is a way to be serviceable to the offense. It's going to run quite a bit and going to need your blocking ability.
No, I agree. It's going to be interesting how he fits into that. We've had a lot of transfer guys come through here at the wide receiver room with Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, Silas Bolden, A.D. Mitchell, Ajay Hall, those guys. And there was only really, I don't know, Matthew Golden, I think, was the best blocker. Everyone else was kind of, blocked when they wanted to, I guess you could say. Yeah. So that is a very good point to bring up. I don't know how he's going to doing that. I'm assuming if he's a take here at Texas, especially at a position that is, you have talent there. Now, do you have proven talent? No. That he's going to be at least a decent blocker for this football team is my assumption. But he had 10.9 yards per reception on top of what you said, which is 48 receptions, 525 yards. You get him for multiple years. You get him in this system. You allow, again, more competition to see who your best 3 to 4 guys are that you can put on the field. So I'm all for this signing. We'll see when he does get to campus officially and start practicing with the football team. Obviously, he missed the portal or the spring practice window, so he's going to have to wait a little longer to practice with the team, but hopefully comes in shape, ready to go, because there are spots up for grabs. Remember, Ryan Wingo is hurt and did not play at all this spring. DeAndre Morris, same thing. We've had, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, guys step up. Can he be one of those guys as well when he gets onto campus?
Yeah, and again, like you said, the opportunity is there and ripe for the taking. So can he do it?
100%. That does it for Emmett Mosley committing to Texas. Next up, we'll talk about another wide receiver who is standing out for Texas, and that's Dalen McCutcheon. Dalen McCutcheon has done a very good job so far for Texas. All reports are that, honestly, he's standing out the most amount among all the freshman wide receivers. So do you think that says more about Dalen McCutcheon, Gerald, or do you think that says more about the rest of the freshman wide receivers?
Can it be both, right? Is that a boring answer to say both, right? Because you said it last week. You said it really well. Like, with the injuries, there's an opportunity, right? There's an opportunity for folks to make a name for themselves. And Dalen McCutcheon seems to be the guy that has stepped up in the wake of those injuries, right? He's not the guy, honestly, that I think many folks expected, and no shot at him, but he's just not one of the flashier, sexier names that Texas has in this wide receiver room. But, he's a guy who's, a 22-foot long jumper, a really explosive athlete, a volume receiver, a guy who, came into Texas and didn't have the most polished route tree because he was just the guy at Lovejoy that was able to make one move at the line, raise a hand, and be wide open for a touchdown, right? 38 touchdowns in 2 years is absolutely ridiculous as a high school player. But like, go watch his tape and you can see probably why he's the guy who's coming off. Like, for Texas, he's an explosive player. He's really patient in the open field, which I really like from a wide receiver. And so he has all the makings of an explosive threat for Texas. He has all the makings of a guy who Steve Sarkisian likes. He's agile in space. He uses his body really well. He's explosive, and he plays a lot taller than he is. He's able to jump up, use his arms. He's got pretty long arms for a kid his size. Uses arms really well to extend up and make catches. So it's not surprising to me that Dalen McCutcheon is standing out. It's just, of all the names, he's not the one I would have put money on.
No, I mean, I'm here saying every week I think Khalil Lockett is the most talented guy just coming out, period, of this class, of the wide receiver, out of the wide receivers. And we have the guy who I think he's ranked either 10th or 11th on the composite of services of wide receiver rankings as a freshman, basically coming in. And you had Jamie French and Khalil Lockett ahead of him, both inside the top 7. So for this guy to be standing out says a lot to me. It wasn't just, people on the team. It wasn't just reporters. They talked to guys that watched like the scrimmage that Texas had, and the recruits said, hey, this guy is standing out to me. And I think that's very important because you're kind of getting a third party there to verify what other people are saying. I think that's super important. He's a very good football player. There's no doubt about that. I just thought it'd take a little bit more time. And that's why I tend to go with a freak when you step on campus for wide receivers. Certain positions, I tend to go on just plain out or flat out measurables. And to me, he was even on that. He's probably third out of the 3 guys we just brought in. So it's really impressive if he's standing out. I'm interested to see what position he's going to play. Is he going to play slot or is he going to play outside? I don't know. Right now, it seems like he's more of an inside guy. But where do you think he ends up playing here at Texas for the long haul?
Yeah, I think based on like his build and his move set, I think he probably ends up starting off interior, and I think he probably lands there. Again, just his ability to use his body really well in space. But he does have some of those outside receiver skill sets. He's really good at running a fade route. He's really good at running a go route. That's what he ran mostly in high school, if you go watch his film. But he was a returner at Lovejoy, so he's a guy who's good with the ball in his hands in the open field, which is something that Texas likes to have at that slot position. He's a guy who I think can be a consistent target. I think back to a couple of years ago, Jordan Whittington at that slot position was just a guy where you could set your watch to Whittington for 5 yards and a first down, right? And so I think McCutcheon has the makings of that kind of wide receiver. And having that safety blanket, we've talked about it before at the tight end position, but having that safety blanket for a kid like Arch Manning in his first season as a starter, having somebody like Dalen McCutcheon at the inside receiver who can use his body really well, who's not afraid. He's not a tall guy, but he's pretty thick. He's thicker than his size would indicate. And so being able to go and catch a quick slant on an RPO for 5 yards and a first down is super important to have. So I say all that to say, I think he probably sticks at interior just because of size and skill set match. It seems to make the most sense.
No, I agree. I think if I were to draw a comparison to someone on the team currently, it's DeAndre Moore. I think that's who he kind of compares to the most. Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes sense. And it kind of works out for him. DeAndre Moore is out for the spring and he kind of gets to slide in there, start running first team reps. In the end, as long as these aren't serious injuries, like if Ryan Wingo's hamstring lingers, obviously not a good sign for Texas. If DeAndre Moore's, I believe it's his foot, lingers, not a good thing for Texas. But if they're short term and they go into the season healthy and they get some fall practice, I think this actually works out for Texas long term because all these guys were forced to take more reps when some of them may not even be ready. Like that's the thing. Dalen McCutcheon may just be standing out right now because of the lack of production we have at the wide receiver room. Who knows? That's a question. It will get answered during the season. If he starts taking first team reps with those two guys, then hey, this guy would have played no matter what. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that turns out.
Yeah, and I mean, this is, like you said, if the injuries aren't severe, if the guys are able to come back in the fall and things work out like we hope they work out for Texas, then this just means that Texas has another starter quality wide receiver that they can put out there, that they can rotate in, that can have fresh legs in the fourth quarter, or they could run a 4 wide receiver set with this guy on the field and not have much of a drop off. I based on how Texas is running the spring practice, and again, I don't have inside sources. I don't have sources. I'm just a guy, right? But, based on how Steve Sarkisian has approached the health and safety of players in the last few years, I would not be surprised if at least one of those wide receivers, probably if it was October, would still be practicing, right? Or be able to go come game day, right? I would not be shocked just based on how he's treated wide receivers and skill players in those thinner rooms, right? I think last year Texas had players sit out of the spring game because, we're thin at that spot and he's on the mend. Why risk it, right? And I'm wondering and I'm curious if that's the same situation or similar situation with one of those guys. Again, I don't have sources. I'm just a guy on the internet, but I would not be shocked. Just, you read enough tea leaves and you see how somebody, moves and operates. One of these guys may be healthier than we anticipate just based on how Sark likes to treat injuries in the spring.
No, that's very true. And it could also be the point of, hey, we already know what Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore are, so there's no reason to push it further. Like, you're good. You don't need these 15 practices. Let's have these young guys get integrated into the offense. So that's also that could be the case as well. But it's awesome that he's stepping up and he's the one that seems to be standing out. Like every report you read, it's this guy. It's always this guy. So that's awesome to see. Hopefully Khalik Lockett and Jamie French, continue to pursue a starting role as well. And we'll see what happens. But right now he's the one standing out.
It'll be fun to see.
100%. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to us down below. It really helps out what we're trying to build here. Also, guys, if you want to sponsor the show, you don't have to sponsor our show. You don't have to sponsor the Michigan show. You can sponsor any show on the channel. Please contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com. It really helps us out what we're trying to grow. Get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level. Let's discuss how you can reach your target market. Thank you guys for that. And also, that is someone that sponsors the Michigan show, and they've had a great relationship with the Voice of College Football channel and the Michigan channel in particular. So we really appreciate that. Also, check out the Voice of College Football Instagram channel. Just type in Voice of College Football on Instagram, and you can find it anywhere, or you can find it there and subscribe over there or give us a follow. It really helps out what we're trying to build. And we really appreciate that, guys. Oh, didn't mean to do that. So thank you guys for that. And again, you can find us, as it says down in the right-hand corner, X, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Apple. We are there. Just type in Voice of College Football. We really appreciate you guys doing that. Now, let's talk about this next topic, which is SEC QB rankings. Where do we think Arch Manning ranks? Where do we think other guys ranked obviously in the SEC. Gerald, like a lot of 6 here pretty quickly, and then we'll sell into a nice. I'll start out with who your 16th quarterback is, and I guess it might be new now because we had that crazy transfer situation at Tennessee.
Yeah, I think I still have the Calzada Armada there at number 16. I've seen Zach Calzada at Texas A&M. I just don't think he's a very good quarterback, at least comparatively. Oh, I think we lost. Oh, Matthew, you back?
That's fair. No, we are. Yeah, I'm here. All right, can you hear me?
I can. Oh,
let me see if that helped. Did that help at all?
Yep, it did.
Okay. So for me, I'm 16 as well. I'm Zach Calzada. I don't think he's very good. I've seen enough of him. I don't really care what he did at Incarnate Word, even though I will say, hey, Cam Ward did come there, so they have something positive going for him. But no, I just don't think he's 16 as well.
I don't think the measurables are quite up to what Cam Ward brings to the table, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out for him. I think Matthew's having some technical difficulties, so I'll run through my bottom 6, and we can get into the top 10 when he gets back. I've got Jake Merklinger out of Tennessee coming at 15 again. We haven't seen much from him. Nico was going to be the guy before Nico decided to hold out of spring camp, apparently. So he is Merklinger. I need to see something from him in order to put him higher on the list. Bo Prabula at Missouri. Austin Simmons at Ole Miss, Ty Simpson at Bama. If you weren't good enough in that offense to beat out Jalen Milroe, based on how everybody hated on Jalen Milroe, then we are going to assume that we're not the great. Gunnar Stockton I have probably lower than folks would like. I've got him at number 11. And then Matthew could run you through his bottom 6, and we can go on through the list.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see now what you had. So 15, Bo Prabula. I do have him there. I think he could climb, though. He's one of those guys that I was impressed what he did at Penn State, but he wasn't the guy at Penn State, so teams weren't, game planning against him, so he's 15. Number 14, I have Jackson Arnold. I don't think Jackson Arnold's that good. I will see what he does at Auburn, but if Hugh Freeze misses again on the quarterback, the seat might get very, very hot there. Number 13, he could be higher on the list, honestly. I don't hate Blake Shapen. I actually thought he played pretty good for Mississippi State, but I think you have to account for availability as well, and he's always hurt. We saw that at Baylor. We see it at Mississippi State, and the supporting cast doesn't help that. Like, he doesn't have a very good offensive line. I honestly don't think Jeff Lebby's that good of a coach, so I have him at 13. Number 11 or 12, sorry, I have Talon Green. I like Talon Green, but again, health is a big thing for me, and he's inconsistent with throwing the football. I don't think he's terrible at throwing. Obviously, can't be a Division I quarterback, especially in the SEC, and terrible at throwing the football, but he's not consistent enough for my liking, so that's why he's my number 12. You're at number 11 now?
Yeah, I had Gunnar Stockton at 11.
Oh, okay. So you're a little bit lower on him than I am. Number 11, I do have Austin Simmons. I think Austin Simmons is a solid football player, but again, just haven't seen enough of him. So I have him at number 11. So we can settle into our top 10 now.
We have some differences, which is rare for us, which is good.
Yeah, that is true.
So at 10, I have Marcel Reed. At 10. I think Marcel Reed, if this was quarterbacks who like zone read quarterbacks, I'd probably have him higher. I just haven't seen enough from Marcel Reed as a passer to put him any higher. He's a crazy athlete, and I think he's got an opportunity to really grow that, because there are I think there may be one guy on this list, maybe two guys on this list that are as explosive of players and athletes as Marcel Reed. I think if we're doing athleticism rankings, the dude's just an athletic freak, right? He's just absolutely, but I just have not seen enough from him as a passer over the last year for me to feel higher about him.
No, I think that's fair. I'm a little bit higher on Marcel Reed. My list will reflect that. I think if he just changes and tunes a little bit of his game, he can be a very good quarterback. His big issue was, which is weird, they pointed out in the Texas game, like he couldn't throw, I believe it was to the right side. Like he just didn't throw to the right side, which is very weird to me. So if they can like take some of that out of him, I think he can be a really good quarterback. Number 10 for me, I'm lower on this guy because I'm more of a conventional quarterback type of guy, is Diego Pavia. I think he's a
Okay.
really good gamer and game manager, and I think he works for that type of offense, but I don't think he's a good quarterback, and that's my opinion on him.
I have him higher on my list, and I'll explain why when we get there. But I mean, I feel like 6 through 10 is probably pretty fluid. Like I feel like it's more like tiers in this. But yeah, I have Diego Pavia a little higher on my list as well. What about number 9?
Number 9. So I had Nico here originally. I'm just gonna leave it here. That's where their situation ranks. I think they're going to end up getting a better quarterback. Not than Nico, maybe about as good, maybe a little bit better, depends on who they get, but I think they'll get better than the 2 guys they have on the roster now. I think they're going to explore. I think you're going to look at Brown from South Florida. They're going to look at Avery Johnson would be like the guy. That would be an upgrade if they could get him from Kansas State somehow, or Rocco Becht from Iowa State. I think you're going to land someone in that range. If you do that, I might even push them up a little bit higher, but I have the Tennessee QB situation at 9 for right now.
Yeah, I went with the starter they have on campus, or the guy they have on campus. I had Merklinger at 15 because we haven't seen anything from him. I had him above Calzada because I think maybe I'm just biased against guys who played at A&M. I have Blake Shapen at number 9. I think Blake Shapen is what you mentioned about availability is huge, right? He has struggled with injuries, and I think Mississippi State, I don't know if they've done enough along the offensive line to ensure that Blake Shapen makes it through a complete season. But I think when Blake Shapen has been healthy in those like 17 minutes of football that he has been healthy over the last couple of years, he's been good. He's shown flashes of why he was one of the guys at Baylor, right? He's shown flashes of why he was a guy who was pretty decently coveted when he went into the portal. And so, I think he's got an opportunity in that offense. It's a very quarterback friendly offense. So I think he can put up numbers this year. And I think he's got an opportunity to, if he can stay alive behind Mississippi State's offensive line, then I think he's got an opportunity to do something.
That's true. I have Gunnar Stockton here. I'm higher on Gunnar Stockton than most people. What I saw, I actually thought he was an upgrade in the game I did see versus Notre Dame. I thought he played a very good football game in that game. And if the wide receivers at Georgia can just catch passes, that's the reason Carson Beck had a much worse year than people realize too. Like, if they just caught 50% of the passes that they dropped out of the ones they dropped, he would have had like 300, 400 yards more passing. If they caught all of them, I think he lost like 800 receiving yards. And you saw Gunnar Stockton in that one game lose like 80 yards passing, which means he would have been a 300 yards passer versus a top 10 defense in Notre Dame. So I was impressed. I also think he's got a lot of gamer to him. I actually think he's like an upgraded or a slightly upgraded version of a Diego Pavia. I think they're kind of similar. So that's why I have him a little bit higher than Diego Pavia, and also at number 8.
Yeah, he was Gunnar Stockton was one of the ones that I struggled with the most. I had him higher on my list, and then as I just couldn't justify, I think, in the way I was thinking about it, putting him higher. But I ultimately he is. I mean, Texas fans know how good he is, right? He came back and engineered a comeback against Texas, so there's nothing to be said about that. At number 8, I've got Jackson Arnold. I have him higher than you have him on the list. I think Jackson Arnold suffered from being the quarterback and the worst year OU has had in modern history, right? I think folks like to crap on him a lot. And I put this out there in other socials. Like, fans should be way less mad at Jackson Arnold and way more mad at OU's offensive line coach and their head coach for not being able to field a single healthy wide receiver. If you put any quarterback out there with a bad offensive line and no healthy receivers, they're going to look terrible. And the reason why the other guy was better is because he's faster, right? Like, he's able to just bail and run. And so I think Jackson Arnold, again, it feels weird saying nice things about Jackson Arnold because of all the folks that spent years telling us that he was better than Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers. And again, here we are, right? But I think Jackson Arnold has an opportunity to really recreate the conversation around himself. I think Auburn's situation is better than what Oklahoma has right now as far as surrounding talent, especially offensively. Again, we'll talk about Oklahoma's quarterback situation here coming in just a moment. But, I think Jackson Arnold is a guy who got unfairly maligned by being on a really bad team and was not put in a good winning position.
No, I think that's completely fair. I just was never a big fan of him, even coming out of high school. I thought he was a little bit overrated, in my opinion. So I never saw anything to deter me from that at Oklahoma, so I'm just going to stick with it. Now, if he does that at Auburn, then I'll change my mind. I think he has natural and raw ability. It just, I feel like he's more of an athlete than a quarterback at this point, so that's why I had him there.
I think
Number 7, I have Ty Simpson. I didn't really know exactly what to do with him because he hasn't played that much. He's been okay. I mean, it's hard for me to believe he's going to be really good because Jalen Milroe wasn't a great passer of the football. If this guy was an elite passer of the football, I think they would have played him, especially last year, because Kalen DeBoer wants a sniper at the quarterback position. He wants someone who will dot you up like Michael Penix, and that's just not Jalen Milroe. So it's hard for me to believe that this guy's going to be that. So that's why I have him at number 7.
Your exact like talking points is why I had him at number 12 in that offense. If you could not beat out Jalen Milroe, then I'm not ready to believe in you yet, right? And again, I'm a big Jalen Milroe believer. I love Jalen Milroe. I was sad when he decommitted from Texas, but he wasn't the quarterback they needed in that offense, right? And so if you could not beat out Jalen Milroe in that offense, then I'm not ready to believe in you yet. At 7, I have Taylor Green. I think he, not again, like you mentioned, not the classic quarterback, but I think he fits what Arkansas is going to want to do at quarterback. I think they probably will be the run heavy, wham 'em, bam 'em kind of offense that they have been in the past. And I think he's able to execute that really well with his body type, with his play style, with how he likes to approach the football game. I think when it comes to fit, both schematically and for the team and for like the psyche of the fan base, I think Taylor Green's a good fit. So I have him at number 7.
Number 6 for me is Marcel Reed. This is where I have Marcel Reed. I just think there's a lot of potential for Marcel Reed. Again, I was impressed for what he was thrown into at Texas A&M. They had okay wide receivers. Their running backs were decimated. They had like no running back help at the end of the season. And I thought he was a decent enough quarterback, and I think he's going to get better. So that's why I have him at number 6, but I can definitely see why someone would have him lower. To me, I think there's 4 guys that you have to rank in the top 4, and then there's 5 through, I would say, like 13. You kind of have to like just throw around and pick whoever your flavor is.
Yeah, I think the top 4 is pretty set. I think we'll have probably a top 5, 6 situation. At 6, I have Diego Pavia. I think, again, based on what Vanderbilt wants to do, and we've talked a lot about, like, I haven't seen enough from him yet. I haven't seen enough from that guy yet. We've seen a ton of what Diego Pavia is going to do. And I think Diego Pavia is good enough to beat Alabama, he was almost good enough to beat Texas last year, right? Diego Pavia has been a giant killer in a lot of senses. And you mentioned being a gamer earlier, like that is an often overlooked and undervalued feature of a quarterback. He's a guy who's going to walk in and pee on an opponent's center midfield, right? He's the guy who's going to walk in and say, I don't care who you are, what the logo is on your helmet. I don't care what stadium we're in. I'm going to come in and try to punch you in the mouth. And I value that quite a bit. And again, based on how Vanderbilt wants to play football, they want to play that clock control, annoying, grind it out with four yards of play and extend those drives with my legs, make some weird plays. Like, again, based on fit and what we've seen from him, I think Diego Pavia, with that marriage at Vanderbilt, is number 6.
I think that's completely fair. Number 5 for me is John Mateer. I think this is where it gets hard. If he had put up similar numbers, which he put up fantastic numbers at Washington State, if he would have done that in the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, he's probably top 2 or 3. But the problem is he did it versus very weak competition. So how does that translate to Oklahoma? It's going to be a little bit softer landing because you do bring Ben Arbuckle along with you. I think that helps out a little bit. I think it's basically impossible to have the same type of injuries Oklahoma did last year at their skill positions. Like, I just don't see that happening again. So I think that will help him out as well. Deion Burke healthy. He's a really, really good football player. So I have it at number 5. And I think you could argue all the way up to probably 2 or 3 for him.
Yeah, I have him at 5 as well. And I think he is, again, I think it's a level of competition thing, right? Where when he played, let's just Texas Tech, for example, he was 9 of 19 and threw a touchdown and interception, right? Against Washington, he was 17 of 34 and was 1-1, right? But when he played Portland State, he threw 5 touchdowns. When he played a bad Hawaii team, he threw 3 touchdowns. Utah State, New Mexico, right? 4 touchdowns in those games. But like against, Wyoming, was 1-1, right? So like there's an opportunity, like I think it's a level of competition thing. Again, it's hard to put up those types of numbers in a video game, but I think based upon if he, again, like you said, if he did it even at a decent ACC team, right, or something along those lines, I would feel better about him. But I just have not seen that production against good teams. And when he played the better teams on the schedule, those were the games he struggled in.
No, 100%. Who's your number 4?
I've got Lagway at 4. I've got DJ Lagway at 4. Again, I think if DJ Lagway is one of the best. I think DJ Lagway has the opportunity to end the year in New York. Like if he plays, at his highest potential, I think he's a Heisman level quarterback. I think based on the level of talent he has, I think this is one of the great things about high buyouts for coaches is that it buys people patience. It's forced patience, right? And I think getting Billy Napier a couple of extra years, giving DJ Lagway a year to develop. I think if DJ Lagway is healthier last year, I think Florida has a very different football season. I think that Texas game looks vastly different. I think Texas probably still wins, but I think it's much closer and much more competitive than it was. DJ Lagway is a dude. There's no two ways around it. Him being at 4 is not a statement on his skill. I think it's just there's a ton of skill at the top level of the SEC. It's going to be a very top-heavy SEC quarterback year. DJ Lagway is a dude, and I'm not excited to go play him in the swamp this year for Texas.
No.
Like, it's going to suck. He's a very good quarterback, and he's a guy who can light up the scoreboard on any given Saturday.
No, 100%. Number 4 for me is Garrett Nussmeier. I think all the talent is there for him. He has a super strong arm. He's accurate. He just makes some mind-numbingly dumb decisions sometimes. That's what I've seen from him do. Like he'll throw an interception. Why are you throwing that? Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a stronger arm Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart did a lot of that too in college. Where why are you throwing that football there? That doesn't make any sense. So I don't know if that can be taken out of him because honestly, there's not many quarterbacks that I've watched in college, NFL, that gets taken out of. Josh Allen is honestly the only one who's like those dumb decisions have kind of gone away. Whereas everyone else is like, you're still making these dumb decisions because that's just who you are. That's who you were doing or what you were doing when you were 7, 8 years old playing Pee Wee football. So it's going to be a very interesting for Garrett Nussmeier this year. And this is a big year just in general for LSU. And I think they're going to go as far as he takes him because he has a lot of talent. Like he could be the number 1 pick in the draft. That's how good he is. Number 3 for me, this is where my boy comes in, Arch Manning. I think Arch Manning has a crap ton of talent. I just can't put him at 1 or 2 yet because I have yet to see him do it through a whole season. He does have some similar things to Garrett Nussmeier where I'm like, why are you doing this sometimes? But then I will say this, in the game versus Mississippi State, he was a lot more in control than he was versus the week prior in UTSA. UTSA was kind of all over the place. Mississippi State, he throttled down a little bit and ran the offense better. If he can do that, he can definitely be the number 1 quarterback in the SEC moving forward.
Yeah, and I think I've got Arch right there at 3 as well. And again, I think this is we're judging folks either based on potential or judging folks based on production. And I think Arch is a guy who doesn't have much production, but I think what we've seen from Arch is a very high ceiling from him. And again, we're probably seeing this through burnt orange colored glasses. I'm not going to say that we're not probably biased, but like I put him there, and then I validated it against other lists that had him and most of them had him in the top 4 or 5, and so I felt fine with it. Right, I think Archie's a guy who has a lot of expectations. The highs that we've seen from Arch are very, very high. Now he's made some dumb decisions, but unlike, like we mentioned, Garrett Nussmeier, he's not a 4th or 5th year player. He is going to be in his first year starting. He was a first year or second year backup last year. So there is some of that to be at play. So I think if Arch hits his ceiling, and I can say the same thing for any of these guys in probably the top 4 or 5, right? If Arch hits his ceiling, there's an argument that he will likely be one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the country. But I'll say the same thing about DJ Lagway, who I had at 4, or Garrett Nussmeier, who I have higher on the list, right? I would say the same thing about all those guys.
Who do you have at number 2?
I've got Lenore Sellers at number 2. I think Sellers is a stinking dude. Now, he's another one that we talk about availability is your best ability, and he had some injury issues last year. But I think when we look at just how much impact they have on a game, and you talk about guys that you have to scheme around, Lenore Sellers is that dude, right? Lenore Sellers is a guy who you absolutely have to scheme around. You absolutely have to have your best game against him because he's going to make you pay. He's going to punish you. He's fired out of a cannon when he decides to pull the ball down. But unlike some of the other quarterbacks on the list, I think he also has a very good passing ability. I think he's got some opportunity to grow. But again, young quarterback, right? First year start. So he relied on his ability to be the best athlete on the field in some instances. I remember watching that A&M game, right? And if he doesn't go out, I think they probably are able to hold on to that game, right? Lenore Sellers is just a freaking dude, and there's no two ways around it.
No, 100%. I have him at number 2 as well. I think he is the closest thing, like body type wise, in the way he plays to Cam Newton since Cam Newton. He's just a big tank. Like he could play linebacker. He's huge. So I've been very impressed with him. That team, South Carolina team, you got to realize, when I was breaking down the roster last year, I said it's one of the 3 to 4 worst rosters in the SEC. But then I came on the show and predicted 7-5, and they outdid that because of this guy, of him, Nick Harbor, and basically Rocket Sanders. Those are the only 3 guys I believed in on that team, and they all played really well last year, and they won 9 games. They don't have Rocket Sanders anymore. It's going to come down to Nick Harbor and Lenora Sellers. They are literally going to have to put up video game type numbers if you're going to see South Carolina sneak into a college football playoff. If they don't put up video game type numbers, that team is not going to a college football playoff. They do not have the talent. They lost most of that really good defense. You really only have Dylan Stewart and 1 or 2 guys coming back from that. So it's going to be all on Lenora Sellers this year.
It is very much going to be on his shoulders, but I think he's got the ability to do it. All right, who do you have number 1? Again, spoiler alert.
I have DJ Lagway. When I watched the LSU game, I have a tweet out there. I tweeted 5 minutes after the game. I predicted Florida to beat LSU preseason. I predicted that game in season as well to stick with it. And it was because of this guy. I think he has the highest upside I've seen in a while at the quarterback position, not just because of the athleticism, but he's got a strong arm. He's really accurate. He's able to play from the pocket and move around. That's a thing that's kind of lost too. People don't realize you have to be able to move around in the pocket to extend plays more than making plays from outside the pocket, but he can do that as well. He does everything well. There's nothing I look at and like, man, he needs to get a lot better at this, a lot better at that. I think they're going to have a decent season this year, and I think he's going to be the biggest reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had him at number 4 on my list, and I think there's an argument like you made for him at number 1, and I think I could have very well put him at number 1 on my list because he's just I keep coming back to this. But when you look at difference makers on the field and guys who are gravitational guys who require you to scheme for them, who require you to be aware of them in multiple facets of a defensive scheme, Lagway is one of those guys. So I have Nussmeier at number 1, controversial pick. I think part of it is because LSU is just too talented for him to not be good, right? And again, I said that we could have said that last year, and look what they turned in. But I think based on what we've seen from him and what hopefully LSU can do schematically to help him, it's just weird how they schemed him up in some games and how they schemed the offense. They're just, hopefully he's not having to throw the volume that he has had to throw in the past, and they can supplement him with some running game that will take some pressure off him. But from what we've seen from Garrett Nussmeier, again, if we get the highest highs of Garrett Nussmeier, if we get the heights, he could be one of those guys that we're talking about being in New York at the end of the year. He's a guy who has all the talent in the world. If he throws 2 less interceptions, he's, looking at 26 and 10 last year, which is a really good number, right? 26 and 10 sounds way better than 26 and 12. And it's just one of those weird ways that numbers slice and sound, right? It's just a massive difference in that. So I think that to me, I think Nussmeier is great. I think LSU goes as far as Nussmeier can take them and as far as the offense schemes him into success.
No, I don't disagree with that. Like I said, I think the top 5 you can throw in basically any order, and I'm not going to really argue with it. It's more of a tier thing for me. That's the thing too. When people always complain about rankings, I'd rank it, but then I'd also tier it because it makes more sense. Like if you want to debate 1 through 5 as your first tier, I think those are the guys. Whatever order you want to put them in, I don't really care because you can make it an argument for all of them. After that, I really think it's 6 through about 10 to 11 is in that same tier, and then throw them in there, and then 12 to 16 is the bottom of the barrel in the SEC. And a lot of these guys can, I said, move up. Like Bo Prabula at the end of the year, if he's the 8th ranked quarterback in the SEC, it wouldn't shock me. He has the talent to do it. I watched him at Penn State, but it's about when he's game plan against, how does he do? Because he wasn't. No one was saying, hey, we got Bo Prabula this week. This is how you stop him. They were saying, hey, we got Drew Aller this week. This is how we stop him. And they spent 5% of the game plan on Bo Prabula.
Yeah. And again, I think that top tier for me, I wouldn't even go 5. I think it's like Lagway, Sellers, Arch, and Nussmeier are probably that top tier of quarterbacks in the SEC. And again, feel free to timestamp this and come back in 10 months and tell me I'm wrong, whatever. But I think those 4 guys are going to set the ceiling for what the quarterbacks are in the SEC. And it's going to be really fun to watch.
No, it is. It's going to be very interesting. I thought the SEC was loaded at the quarterback position last year, and they kind of let me down. So we think it's loaded this year. We'll see if they live up to it.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you guys for watching. Again, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. We're going to talk about this because I haven't seen it talked about enough, in my opinion, and I'm very interested to see your opinion, Gerald, on this. Who is Texas's bigger rival? Is it Texas A&M, or is it Oklahoma? because I think this is a debate and it's going to be very interesting. I want to know what you have to say.
I think the answer is generational in a lot of ways. I think there are folks where, like, based on how good A&M was for a generation, that really sets it for them. I think it's so different how I view those two rivals, right? Do I hate them both? Absolutely, right? I hate them through everything. I think Oklahoma is one of those, like, it is a respectful rivalry. It's a rival where they've been good at all the things I want Texas to be good at for a very long time. Texas has this massive softball rivalry with them. And even in Texas's best year in softball, OU beat them in the national championship, right? Even in some of Texas's best years in football, Oklahoma was the big roadblock for them in those things, right? And again, there's nothing like the Cotton Bowl in Dallas in October. There's nothing like that experience. And it's fun. I think A&M is more adversarial in a lot of ways, where it's very much a hatred kind of rivalry, where we just deep down hate each other, where at Thanksgiving it's a proximity thing. We see each other at the office, we see each other at Thanksgiving dinner, at family gatherings. You go to church with somebody who's wearing an A&M polo and you just want to wrestle them in the parking lot, right? Whatever it might be. That's never happened to me. I don't wrestle people in church, but like, that's the conversation, right? One of my best friends on the face of this earth, A&M grad, and we give each other hell constantly about it. We have a group thread, a group text, and me and a couple of A&M fans and a couple of Texas fans, and we are ruthless in there. So I think it's a different type of rivalry for me. I think there's that competitive rivalry with Oklahoma, and it's just some deep down hate with A&M. We just hate each other, and that's what college sports is all about.
Yeah, so I'm going to compare it to, like, there's a rival you have at your school that you don't really like them, but you kind of respect them, to where for Oklahoma, and I think A&M is just like the stepchild. They're not even a stepbrother, they're stepchild. Like, you just don't like them. Like, this guy's kind of an asshole. Don't really like being his dad, but whatever. That's how I feel. And this is from, again, you're in Texas, have to live with that. I'm in Ohio, I don't have to deal with it, but everything I see online, I'm going to be honest, I had a guy on here from Texas A&M about a year ago. I was nice to him on here. Kind of an ass, but he was, and that's the thing. That's the kind of the vibe I get from Texas A&M is they have this holier than now attitude that they accuse Texas of, with none of the trophies or accolades to back it up. Like, they have nothing, and they talk about, oh, we're Texas A&M, we're proud of this and this. You don't have anything to be proud of. You're not good at anything, so I don't understand it. Whereas Oklahoma, I respect. They are a damn good football program, and I said this on the channel with Mark, on his main channel and on here, and I'm going to get hate for it again. Oklahoma is a better all-time football program than Texas. They are. If you look at the numbers, you look at the draft picks, you look at all that, they are a better all-time football program than Texas. You know what the best thing about all-time is? We can catch up. There's still plenty of time to go in all-time because it never ends. So we can catch up with that. But if you're ranking football programs all time, Oklahoma is probably third or fourth. Texas is like seventh. Texas A&M isn't even in the discussion. Texas A&M is like 50th. So it's one of those things. I will always despise A&M more, or I should say this. I will always hate Texas A&M more, but I have a respect for Oklahoma that will continue to grow. And also, I don't like them, but if they're playing in a football game, national championships on the line, and I had to root. You're going to make me root because that's how I do this too when looking at it. I'm rooting for Oklahoma. I'm not rooting for Texas A&M. I don't want them to win at anything. I despise them.
I mean, are they playing each other in that situation?
Yes, they're playing each other.
If so, I'm cheering for a sinkhole, right? Or a fire or a bomb threat or something. Nobody gets hurt, right? But I just don't want the game to happen and somehow everybody loses, right? That's how I feel in that situation. But I say, why does Texas not float away into the Gulf? Because Oklahoma sucks, right? That's how I live my life. It is 7:46 p.m. in God's Central Time, and Oklahoma still sucks, right? That's how I live my life. But again, like we said, Oklahoma has been, and again, this is probably going to be one of those things people get mad at, from a consistency standpoint, from a never being terrible standpoint. Up until 2 years ago, Oklahoma has had one down period. They've had two down periods now. Texas had the last decade prior to Steve Sarkisian, and even the first year of the Steve Sarkisian era, right? So we can talk about their level of success, but I think that sums it up really well, is that Oklahoma has earned that level of, I don't like you, but at least you're good at something, right? At least you're good. Whereas, and again, A&M has a lot of growing to do in that area. And again, you can tweet at me, or you can, post at me, or whatever you want. But like, when your trophy room is empty, right? There's nothing to like Texas. Texas has more SEC championship football appearances in 1 year than A&M has in the decade plus they were in the conference. Like the proof is in the pudding, right? Texas is just going to, even in your best basketball year in recent memory, Texas still beats you, right? Like that is just how, right? Like that's just how it goes. Again, they're going to be in the comments, and that's fine, right? Drive up our engagement, but when push comes to shove, it is a hated rival, and Texas has historically and recently been the better school.
No, 100%. Yeah. And that's the thing too. It's gone back and forth with Oklahoma football wise. Over the years, it has never really gone back and forth with A&M. Like we lead that series by way more than we lead the Oklahoma series. So I think, I think it's obvious for someone like me, and I agree. I think it's generational because if you're older, like 50s, 60s, you're probably saying Texas A&M. I think if you're younger than 50 years old, you're probably saying Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But yeah, 77-37. Like it's not close. Whereas Oklahoma and Texas is 64-51. It's pretty close. And recently, Oklahoma's beat us more.
Does that have something to do with not playing A&M during the worst 12 years of Texas football history? Yes, right. Would it be closer? But that's neither here nor there. They are the ones that left. We didn't go anywhere. They left. So again, that's fine. That's on y'all.
And heck, give them the other 12. They're still like 25, 30 games behind, even with that. So it doesn't really matter either way.
Yeah.
And then, I wish we would have got that shutout because that would have been beautiful to shut them out the first time. But it is what it is. We did beat them, and we should beat them again this year. We should. We'll see what happens.
Going to Kyle Field and winning the first one felt good. Keep holding that L for another year. Make it 13.
It did feel good. Now, I'm going to run this one by you, too, because this was part of it. Who could be the new rival for Texas? Because Texas obviously has Arkansas. We have Florida. We have teams like that. So who could that rival be? Is it going to be an LSU? Is it going to be a Florida? Is it going to be an Alabama? Is it going to be a Georgia? Who could it be? Who could be that next team that could be the rival for Texas?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there, but fine. I'm back. Yeah, I think the new rival for Texas it's hard. I think Georgia is one that I think I'm starting to hate pretty significantly.
Yeah.
Texas has to beat them in order for it to be a rivalry. It has to be competitive, right? And it just has not been as of late. So Texas is 0-2. I also have this thing about Tennessee and this whole UT thing that I think could be. I think it's going to be a fun rivalry to watch. They just beat the number one softball team, right? So like that's something to keep an eye on. I think that space there. Those are probably the two that jump to me. I think depending on how competitive some of the games this year, I could answer it differently. But I think for my money, I think it's probably Georgia or Tennessee, and I throw probably Alabama in there as well, just because there's a recent history there.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Georgia's number one and far and away right now, just because the two games that we played versus them this year, and all the smack talking you hear kind of from their fans talking about us, like not being able to beat them and everything. So if Texas is able to get the revenge in Athens, I think that also helps out. Like then I think we legitimately have a rivalry budding with Georgia. I also think it's going to be kind of hard because I don't know how the schedule's going to set up. Are we going to play them like every 6 years? So the only time we really would get to play them is in the SEC championship game, but that could happen. We could play them like maybe 2-3 years in a row in the
rivalry.
SEC game. Yeah, then it's a rivalry. I think another one to me is LSU, and this is just based off fans. Like they hated Texas for stealing some of the recruits, Colin Simmons being a big one. Then they kind of got their lick back with Bo Davis going from Texas to LSU, and there was kind of talk between the fan bases there. And then we kind of recruit the same type of players and everything like that as well. We're starting to get into Louisiana. I think that's another thing with Georgia as well, because we're starting to take some of their players. So that's how a rivalry can start as well. But the issue I have with that, I don't think we can be a rival with LSU unless they start becoming, again, like LSU was under Ed Orgeron, winning a national championship, stuff like that. And then also, if Brian Kelly's not there, because he was actually complaining about Texas in the media. He was like, well, there's a certain school that's throwing around money and stealing our recruits. And that's kind of what it got started. So if he's not there anymore, I don't know if it can be. So he's going to have to start winning. The last one for me is Florida. I think, again, if they get good, we're going after the same recruits. They're a historical football program. We get to go down there to Gainesville this year. That's going to be a hell of an atmosphere. So those are my three. I really don't see Alabama because I think there's so much respect between Steve Sarkisian and Alabama and vice versa with Nick Saban kind of still there that I don't see us hating them, and their fans aren't as annoying as they used to be. They used to be pretty damn annoying. They aren't up there anymore like that.
I think just I think that's fair. Like the fan annoyance is not there as high as it could be, but I think based on the field recently, like Texas has kind of gone in and went into Tuscaloosa and kind of put the boots to them. So there's that there, and I think they want to get their lick back. And if they do, then I think a rivalry is going to start. I love the LSU could be a very fun rivalry geographically. I mean, going to Baton Rouge is incredible, right? The Gulf Coast area is just awesome. So yeah, I think that LSU rivalry could also be super fun.
No, 100%. Tennessee would be interesting, but I don't know if they're good enough at football to warrant that. And then their basketball team, Rick Barnes is never going to hate Texas and get that stirred up. Like he was begging basically for us to get in the tournament this year if you heard him afterwards. So that's the reason I see that. But I agree, their fans definitely don't like Texas for, the UT versus UT thing. But on the field and on the court, I don't really see that happening.
Yeah, it's a baseball for sure. It could be a massive rivalry there. I'm excited for that to happen.
No, that is very true. But that does it for the 48th edition of Texas Longhorns Live. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps us out. Also, check us out on Twitter right there. That is my Twitter handle. Please check me out. And this is Gerald's Blue Sky and Twitter handle, as well as his Longhorn Pod, which you can check out. Same thing, Amazon, Spotify, Apple, right there. Just type in Longhorn Pod. We really appreciate you guys doing that. This has been the 48th edition of Texas Longhorns Live. And again, guys, every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, we are here breaking it down for your Texas Longhorns Live. I think we're going to talk a lot about recruiting because we've had a lot of big visitors recently. So we're going to talk about that next week. Hopefully we get another transfer or two. In that meantime, we'll see about that. Remember, David Bailey is still out there. So we really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you guys, and hook 'em.
Hook 'em.